Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reimagine 2021, the virtual conference series. I'm Roshan Mirajkar, the project manager of Reimagine, and one of your hosts for this event. This is our eighth event, and this time we're focused on state of the art chain. So we're exploring NFTs, the implications of content creators, and really a different dynamic of ownership. I'm so excited to be joined here by a returning guest. With me here, I have Jack O'Halloran. He is the CEO and co-founder at Scale. Jack, welcome back to the show. And how have things been since the last time we spoke to you? Have you bought any NFTs since the last time we spoke?
Hey, Roshan, thanks for having me here. Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here today. I'm pumped to talk about NFTs. I think it's a very, very exciting space. Scale actually, we'll get into this in a minute, but just announced functionality to mint NFTs on Scale Chains. So, but hey, Roshan, since to answer your question, since last time, hey, I've been hustling. We've been working around the clock at Scale. We just released another mainnet upgrade that lets all of these new features come to bear for the Scale market, which means sub-second block times at less than half a second, and zero gas transactions. So you can mint NFTs on a Scale chain for zero cost. Just as a developer, you have to pay to buy a Scale chain. You buy a piece of the network, and you're able to then have transactions, run smart contracts, do strategic things like mint tokens or non-fungible tokens. So, but anyways, awesome to be here. Haven't bought any NFTs since I talked to you last, but I'm about ready to try to commission someone to build an NFT, to make an NFT for me that's Scale and Ethereum oriented that is going to go right behind me when I talk. Okay, that's my NFT dream.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome to have like a little hologram or something meaningful in an NFT form. And I think a lot of people in the community, as people are getting more into, I would say the next dynamic of the space, which is basically for me, usage, right? People actually using these different protocols rather than just simply buying and selling, kind of what you could do before. What kind of things have you seen? Probably in the past year, we seem to be in a different dynamic. The market is rebounding in terms of like interest, not just money coming in. What types of projects are you interested that you kind of seen people building on Scale?
So, and I have to say, I think it's a feeling of just like almost relief, but also like, yeah, this is what we thought was going to happen for all the people that have been building the last 4 years. So we started working on Scale in 2017. Many other phenomenal projects that are now big projects you see started that same year. And the cool thing is, I think there was, we were all standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Where, the people who built Ethereum and other, Bitcoin was long before that, and all the other projects that came before us really were the building blocks for this next generation. And to your point, we're at a phase now where we actually have traction. We have people, it's not hype, it's not speculation. There's obviously hype and speculation, but it's based off of real work and real technology that can deliver on the promises. And where I like to kind of think where we are is we all know that user-owned network marketplaces are better. User-owned products are better. Worker and user-owned governance is better. Profit sharing is better when it's done through users as opposed to just a small set of centralized players. And that spans all over. It spans into NFTs, the way the NFT market works, and we're here talking about art today. It spans into finance. It spans into Web3 and social. It spans into the other areas that crypto and decentralized networks are just permeating. And to me, we've kind of like over the hump now, and it's just when are we going to hit that knee of the curve where these things just get even more prevalent? And we're getting there, and it's awesome to see it happen.
Yeah, and it's great to hear you speak so positively about kind of like rewarding early users or like early people in the community. And I know you have a dynamic community at Scale. And a recent thing that I was looking at that I really want to get into is the Scale Innovator program. Can you talk to us a little bit about like what are some of the incentives and why are you even doing this with the community? As far as is it for adoption or like why is this so important for you?
Yeah, so we actually started the Scale Innovator program in 2018. And what it was select developers that applied, that were accepted into the program, got access to Scale Chains. They have grants for when their Scale Chains go live to help subsidize their early use of the chains. They have access and support to Scale, the core engineering team and core dev team and Scale solutions engineering. They have access to co-marketing support and growth support. And if you think about infrastructure companies and you look at companies like Amazon, AWS, or Google Cloud, or Microsoft Azure, they all have incentive programs and support programs for developers to help get started on their platforms. And decentralized networks should be no different. They're just done a different way. There's a foundation that offers grants. It's community oriented. It's community issued, and it's not centralized. So the Scale Labs core team helps support that effort. But that's the goal of the Scale Innovator program. Is really it's around developers, and that has been awesome. It's been phenomenal. There's 135 teams signed up for that, really big companies to small companies. But we also recently launched the Scale Ambassador program, which is a decentralized, really community effort. And that's in, I think, 18 different languages right now across the world. You see Scale being translated, supported, and it's really about education, awareness, and enablement. And that's the whole premise of the Ambassador program and the Innovator program, where we drive awareness, then we create education materials. We're not trying to shill anything. We're really trying to educate. And then we enable people to then go and either deploy Scale chains and use the network, or stake tokens if they want to participate in the network.
Yeah, and I think you hit you hit a very good point, a very important point as far as education. I think this new wave of people coming in, or even if you're in the space, I feel like I'm always learning all the time, like how to actually use a lot of these different protocols. For the people out there that still don't understand, I guess that some things are proof of work or proof of stake. Like, what's an easier way to understand? I don't know, something like proof of stake protocols and why they might make interacting with Dapps easier. Because I know, you guys have been doing a lot of performance upgrades and new updates that are going to make these decentralized apps faster. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So let me first I'll talk about the size of the proof of stake industry. As of today, there's $146 billion staked into proof of stake networks. And those networks, the way they function is you give collateral. So let's say I'm staking Scale. I'm basically saying, hey, I'm going to put my Scale at risk. And what's happening is if the validator who runs a node or a computer in this blockchain is bad, I get penalized and I lose money. But if the validator's good, then we make money. The validator makes money and I make money, okay? And I'll share like 10% a month with the validator of my return. And it's a business property here where you're actually, and that's the word stake, right? I mean, we put it at stake, and that's where it comes from. You put your money at stake. And then opposed to proof of work, where there's, game theory and game mechanics around energy and, block sizes and winning block awards, and by basically, deploying energy. And in the same way, if you deploy a lot of energy and you act malicious, you kind of wasted that money. That's how proof of work functions. And when it comes to proof of stake, it's a energy friendly mechanic. And that's one of the reasons why Ethereum's switching over with ETH2. That's why Scale and many other phenomenal proof of stake networks are proof of stake. And it enables a lot of other things like very fast consensus. On Scale, you can run a block in about, we just ran one we were running them at 0.35 to 0.45 seconds on the latest testnet before the launch. That means you have 2 blocks per second finalizing, compared to Ethereum taking like 15, 20 seconds per block, and then a lot longer for the end finality. and Bitcoin even slower, right? So proof of stake has a lot of advantages, and it's, I think, you look at Amazon Web Services, that runs a major percentage of the world's technology today and applications. Their revenue in Q4 of 2020 was about $13 billion. Proof of stake networks, based off of the current token price is 146 billion, will do just on that about 20 billion in staking rewards this year. And we're almost catching up to Amazon. Amazon Web Services is still ahead, but hey, in terms of just like creating return, that's massive.
Yeah, definitely. That was such a great point. Actually, I love that comparison. Because also in a lot of these networks, like there's a lot of transactions back and forth, like one transaction to approve, one to get into these different pools, whereas something like AWS, it's like usage based on a on demand manner, like whenever you need it. But these blockchain networks they're always on, right? They never go down. To kind of segue into something that you said, and I'm very excited to have this honor to bring up this point because it's like brand new news. Tell us a little bit about like, these NFTs right now, they're on Ethereum, it's still proof of work. So I would say it's like very energy intensive. So I heard there's a new way on Scale to mint cost efficient NFTs. So tell me a little bit about, these new features, products that you guys are launching, and why it's so important, kind of the way you did it, the way it's constructed.
So let's talk thank you, by the way. I'm really excited to talk about this. It's a huge feature in a massively growing space. So when you think about NFTs, what you need to store an NFT on a blockchain is file storage. And that, so when you think about an image, right, or a video, these are a set of files, and the computer looks at them, and the processor looks at them, and then it can display these images on screens. And so they have to be stored somewhere. And blockchains, to store a bunch of files on a blockchain, it's really expensive. So if you store files on Ethereum, that needs to be stored across the entire network. Okay, it's really expensive. And so instead of storing files on Ethereum, what people do is they connect to IPFS, which is a decentralized file storage. It's protocol. Now, Filecoin runs IPFS, and a lot of other products will use IPFS. But and one of the issues is you can have a smart contract on Ethereum that basically says this private key owns the assets here. And then there's a string of code that points to an IPFS gateway. And then you go to that string of code. And then if that link is pointing to a centralized URL, like the Beeple $69 million piece of art, whatever person has access to that URL could actually like swap what's in what that image is. Now, the contract always says, hey, you own this thing. You can't change that. But if the thing behind the thing changes, that's bad. And it could happen. And so Scale is a little different in that Scale is one big network, but instead of having a blockchain run one across the entire network, all of these nodes run many, many, many blockchains, okay? And so if you want to store files, you only have to store it on a subset of the nodes, and then it's cost effective. Also, the Scale nodes are high-powered machines. They're like, $3,000 to $5,000 machines, or cloud, cloud infrastructure that costs, anywhere from $300 to $1,000 a month based off the specs. So these high-powered machines that have a lot of collateral behind them have a feature called file storage. And so Scale file storage was added a long time ago so that you can run machine learning models with it and AI. You can take neural network models and run them connected to smart contracts. But now we realize this feature also is really great for storing NFTs and actually storing images directly on the Scale chain. And no one can go shift out the URL. The image is actually stored locally on the Scale chain.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting that you can run other types of computations, I guess, on the Scale chain or on the miners. I think what you sort of just described is going to be really helpful for like this next wave or the future of NFTs, because people have only started experimenting, and I would say it's quite difficult. The barrier of entry is a little high in terms of cost for many people. And I don't know if you addressed it earlier, but while we're on this topic, I know you're making a lot of performance upgrades as well that you recently went through. I think it was today or yesterday. So talk to me about how that's connected to, I guess, where do you see the next wave of dApps? I think in 2017, people had like high visions for them. It turns out like this wave of people want to use NFTs, but I think a lot of people out there don't even know they're using dApps sometime, or yeah, maybe just at a high level, like what are some popular dApps that maybe you use or that you're excited for that you think will make an impact in terms of usability?
Yeah. So let me answer the first part of your question. I want to address something you said. So it could cost you hundreds of dollars to mint an NFT on the mainnet. And what you're doing is you're creating art that you don't know has value yet. Also, you're limiting the types of NFTs you can create. Imagine if baseball cards, the only baseball card you can make were rookie cards of the 4 best players in limited edition, because each card costs you $200 to print. You would only be able to print a certain number of cards as a baseball card manufacturer, not like a whole set of all these cards, right? And the same thing's true with NFTs. You need to be able to mint things. And then, the cost of minting them doesn't minimize the value they could reach. There's still scarcity, but what you're doing is you're just lowering the operational cost, and you're letting artists and games and different media platforms do more with NFTs with less risk from a business perspective and less operational costs. And so that's really, the functionality that is important to enable, and that's what Skale can enable with NFTs, and not just low cost, but guarantees that the asset will be there. Okay, so but what, now getting back to your question, what is it about blockchain that didn't happen in 2017? The issue was user experience. So in order to do something on a blockchain in 2017, you needed to have a hardware wallet. It was a real pain in the ass to get your money, your fiat, turned into some form of crypto. It was really painful to try to get tokens transferred from one to another. You had to go over to like Binance or Coinbase or somewhere and try to swap in and out of something else, and then put it back in your wallet, then go to the application. Now we have this fluid exchange environment where really slick API-based wallets that are both mobile and desktop exist. They're connected to exchanges and token mediums where you can get the right assets quickly and easily. They connect easily into applications through Web3. They connect into blockchains through Web3 too. And they're the kind of glue that ties together the user experience. And then from the blockchain perspective, the goal is to make it so a user doesn't know they're using a blockchain. And so that was Scale's design premise. We needed to make it so the transaction finality was just like using a Web2 product, and the cost for the end user was like using a Web2 product. And the end user didn't need to pay every time they did something. You could rely on a developer or community to fund a contract that then could pay for the blockchain transactions, i.e. funding a Scale chain.
Yeah, actually, what you just described there would definitely help more people get in, or like more incentives to get in if somebody like pays for your transaction for you, or if that transaction is not hundreds of dollars. Kind of going back to the NFT topic, like, what do you think it is about? Like, do you see NFTs and like decentralized applications as kind of being relational in any way, just in terms of like the usability of them? Because I think what you said earlier, or what I've been hearing, is like people are right now, people are just buying NFTs for like collectibles, but they're not really using them, if that makes sense. Whether it's a actual representation, I should say the utility. So do you think there's any relationship between like the utility of NFTs and where like decentralized apps were a couple of years ago? Because now people use these dApps, like you said, all the time. But with NFTs, it still seems speculative.
Yeah, there's an element of NFTs people like right now that are all about whatever they buy going up in value. Okay. Um, and that's a speculative nature. But the cool thing about NFTs is that they actually can have other rights attributed to them that are immutable and connected to the ownership of the NFT. And so we're going to start seeing more use cases of these um, come into play. And you hear about the Kings of Leon NFT album that comes with different perks. So imagine you could buy an album that's an NFT that also gave you access to one concert. And then the NFT could be scanned one time, that private key could be used once to get, pay for any concert to get a VIP access, right? That's something that you could do, that would be cool. That actually has a use connected to it. It's more about an exclusive rights to service than something that's an immutable object that will rise in value. And hey, immutable objects that will rise in value are also cool. Guess what? Art are NFTs too, in a way, but they require a lot of people to provide consensus on the fact that it's original art. That's why there's art experts make millions of dollars a year going in and analyzing art for Christie's auctions, right? So NFTs and smart contracts just basically do that work automatically. And so it's not that stuff's bad at all. I think it's really healthy and cool, and it's a big market. But NFTs are going to start doing other things. Imagine their access to concerts, tickets, and rights to certain things. And they're exclusive, and there's finite numbers. And that's what blockchains can do well. You can create rules and orders and mechanics and code them into tokens. And then those tokens are limited and finite and permanent and can also be leveraged for certain things. And so I think we're just getting started. And again, though, we always have to go back to the basic rule. Like, if you get creative ideas from blockchain, you need to ask yourself, well, do I really need a blockchain for this? Is a blockchain going to add value? And now I think more and more the answer is yes, because there's less friction in terms of using them.
There certainly is less friction, and I think that's a big props to a lot of really the development that's gone out there, for people like you and your team, as well, always doing upgrades and keeping the development community happy. One thing I kind of wanted to get into that I think we don't talk about enough in the industry is just the concept of like governance and decision making. How do you within the Scale network, how do you look at, how's decision making or governance different than what you see in a lot of these just yield farming models? Because I think people don't understand the different types of governance, or like what you can even vote on. I think people are just starting to realize like you can use your tokens. Do you have any cool like use cases or things that people might not know about?
I think that the connected point that's similar between yield farming operations, i.e. DeFi projects, and networks like Scale, are that governance really guides economics. And then when you have a group of users that has responsibility, or that own something, and there's a supply and a demand part of the equation. And for example, in yield farming, there's people that are trading, they're the demand side. And then the supply side are the people that are providing liquidity in a liquidity pool. And then if the people in the liquidity pool aren't getting enough money, they're going to say, you know what, we're not going to use this anymore. The return's not high enough. And so how do they change it? Do they just call the CEO? No, there's no CEOs of these things, right? Like, I'm CEO of Scale Labs. We're a core team that supports the Scale network, but there's no CEO of Scale network. It's a bunch of smart contracts on, and so you need governance in order to change the mechanics. So let's say all the people that run nodes in the Scale network say, hey, this costs us too much money. We want a guaranteed rate of return. We want, before anything is paid out, we want 20% to immediately go to the node operator before those bounty rewards are given. And we're going to put our foot down. We need this, or it's not worth it for us. They could submit a governance proposal and people will vote on that. and so I think economics are where we're going to see governance come into play. And and to close the point, the way you actually vote and do these things is to have a token, stake it into these networks and participate. And once you're participating, you then get voting rights. It's kind of like, in like most US cities, if you are signed up to vote, then you also have to do jury duty. You like get to vote, but then you have to do other work. And, and it's a little bit like, it's like, hey, if you do the work, you get the right to vote is kind of it's a little bit, it's backwards. It's opposite of that, but it's it's a connected dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison for people to understand, and it's exciting to see a lot of the upgrades that you're doing, because I think that's one thing that hinders a lot of like interesting use cases, just in terms of it just doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't make sense to spend that much amount of money for things like um, uh, high transactions per second, or like paying people out in real time. What do you think, as networks like yours comes on, and you were telling me that you just upgraded with like uh, I think it was zero gas fees, did you mention?
Yeah, so now the Scale network uses mountains as the themes of the mainnet releases, and
Okay.
started with Mount Tam, which is a small little mountain in the Bay Area, and then Fuji, and then Kilimanjaro, and now Denali is the latest upgrade. And with Denali, the network now is able to produce Scale chains were available prior, but there's certain performance enhancements and security enhancements that the community was waiting on before the chain started getting pushed out to Dapps. And there's 135 Dapps in the Scale Innovator program, and now next week these chains are going to start going live, and we're going to start. There's going to actually be. I'll give a little like alpha like information here that's publicly available, but anybody can, if you're looking at GitHub, you can figure this out. But there's an application that will be launched as a first application, and it's going to be an NFT matching game. And so you're able to like play this fun game and match these images and remember where they are in this matrix. And when you match them, you actually then own the NFT. And you're going to see that when you do this, it's not like you're playing a centralized game. You're actually using the blockchain. The blockchain knows, the smart contracts know which buttons you hit. And when these things match, then you own that NFT. And there's limited quantities of these NFTs. So it's actually an NFT ownership game of fun Scale assets that we thought was cool, because it shows off NFTs running on Scale, and it shows off fast gas-free transactions using MetaMask as a wallet.
Well, there you have it, kind of like the exclusive sneak peeks. And that's why you got to be tuned into Reimagine 2021. We're always trying to bring you these interesting talks to kind of end things off. And before I say that, I highly encourage people to go check out everything that we just talked about, for sure. But yeah, to kind of end things off, one last question. Who do you think has the upper hand in adoption right now? Is it enterprises, or is it small blockchain companies that are like, really have been deep into it? And then, yeah, just some helpful links for like how people can connect with you.
Yeah, so you know what? Blockchain is going to, and crypto is going to permeate every corner of the internet. I think cryptocurrencies add values in so many ways. I mean, these are programmable money, okay? And a lot of the issues we had before with like, now we have stable coins, and we have API-based wallets, and we have proof of stake networks with really fast consensus, and almost very low costs. All these advantages are coming to play, and you're going to see that this permeate everywhere. Now, enterprise will be slower to adopt, and that's in part because one of the values of blockchains is that they disrupt centralized control, and they give coordination and organization to groups of users through smart contracts and mechanism design, instead of relying on middlemen to coordinate and provide services and then charge tariffs and taxes for use. So we'll see naturally enterprise be a little slower, but enterprises that are smart are learning how to leverage and use these things and have hybrid models where they can use Web3, they can use blockchains to grow their own businesses. And so there's some really cool things that are launching soon that I'm excited to see in the enterprise, with Skale included. And we're happy to support that innovation and growth. So you can learn about Skale like wearing the Skale t-shirt. Scale.network is the website, and you'll get access to all of the social links. You can follow me at Jack O'Halloran on Twitter, or at Skale Network on Twitter.
Yeah, love that shirt and love all the great work that you guys are doing. Good luck with all the future initiatives, and really excited to check out NFTs on Skale. Jack, thank you so much for your time and coming back to Reimagine 2021. We look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you.
Roshan, thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Let you all tune back in to Reimagine 2021 version 8. Thanks.